back, and today I'll be telling the story of Indra. I know after a long time I'm finally doing stories because I was so interested and I can't wait to tell you. I have so many books to tell. Anyways, okay, calm down. Okay, so today's story is about Indra's curse. It's a very interesting story of a man who went into Devaloka without the god's permission because there was no mortal allowed, and so many stuff has happened. I just really can't explain right now. But anyways. So without further ado, let's go. And also there's a new video coming out soon. It's a surprise, so stay tuned for that. Indra's curse. There was once a man named Tinta who thought himself the luckiest man in the world. His wife, Kalavati, was breathtakingly beautiful, and she was an Apsara, a magical being. One evening, Kalavati came to him, beaming with excitement. "I'm going up to Devaloka tonight," she announced. "There's to be a grand celebration, and all the Apsaras have been invited to sing." Tinta's ears pricked up. Devaloka was another name for heaven, governed by Indra, the king of the gods. "Rambha will be dancing," Kalavati continued. "You know, the queen of the Apsaras. She's so beautiful. I wish you could see her dance. No one is as graceful. I would love to see her dance," said Tinta. "Why don't I go with you? I can wear my new silk." "Oh no," interrupted Kalavati. "You can't possibly come. Please," Tinta begged. "I have always wondered what heaven is like, and I promise I wouldn't get in the way." "But no mortal is allowed in Devaloka. Couldn't you sneak me in?" her husband asked. No, I'm sorry, my dearest." Kalavati shook her head. "I would get into terrible trouble if Indra found out. Goodness knows what punishment he would give me." "But what if he didn't find out?" Tinta persisted, and he continued in this way all day, asking, begging, and pleading with his wife to take him with her just this once. At last, Kalavati gave in. She shrank Tinta to the size of a caterpillar and hid him inside a lotus flower, which she put in her hair before floating up to Devaloka. The evening surpassed all Tinta's expectations. Indra's palace was spectacular. The singing of the Apsaras was so beautiful, and Ramba danced like a dream. Then a jester in a large headdress strutted into the middle of the room and began a comical dance. To Tinta's amazement, the jester turned himself into a goat and carried on dancing. The dancing goat was the funniest thing Tinta had ever seen. It was all he could do not to burst out laughing. He looked at the goat more closely. Strange, he thought. It seemed so familiar. Eventually, the party came to an end. Back home, Kalavati restored her husband to his normal size, immensely relieved that they hadn't been caught. But the next day, Tinta was at the market when he spotted a goat that looked just like the one he had seen the night before. Rushing up to it, he shouted eagerly, "Dance!" Everyone stared as if he were crazy. The goat simply blinked and continued to chew on an old boot. "Come on, just a few steps," Tinta shouted. The goat continued to ignore him. "Leave the goat alone," called a passerby. "Yes, what's wrong with you?" jeered someone else. "Goats can't dance." Several shoppers started pointing and laughing at the idiot who was asking a goat to dance. Blushing bright red, Tinta hurried home. Soon, everyone was talking about the crazy man who had asked a goat to dance until the news reached Indra himself. He knew at once what Kalavati had done. Furious, he summoned her to Devaloka. "How dare you bring your human husband here?" he roared. "Go home and say goodbye to him. Tonight, I shall turn you into a pillar of stone and you'll be stuck in the temple until the day it falls down." Kalavati fled in floods of tears, but no amount of tears nor comforting from Tinta could change what Indra had decreed. When Tinta woke the next morning, the house was empty and his wife had gone. He raced to the temple and there he found her, frozen in the place of a stone pillar. Sobbing, he buried his head in his hands. What could he do? Even if anyone believed his story, why would they knock down such a magnificent building just to rescue her? He was about to give up hope when he had an idea. That evening, he gathered up Kalavati's necklaces and bracelets and divided them in between 4 pots. After dark, he went into the town and buried each pot in a different location. The next day, disguised as a holy man, he walked around the town, muttering to himself. Word quickly spread that a holy man had arrived. Even the king heard and came to the town square to meet him. As the king approached, a crow flew overhead and cawed loudly. Tinta looked up and held his hands out to the bird. Thank you, kind crow, thank you, he exclaimed. The king was intrigued. You can understand animals? Tinta nodded. What did it say? The king demanded. Your Majesty, it said that just over there, next to that spice stall, there is buried treasure. Really? Said the king, and nodded to one of his guards to go and dig on that spot Tinta had indicated. Lo and behold, he found a pot filled with jewels. The king was astounded. Tinta smiled modestly and continued on his tour of the town, now with the king in tow. A while later, Tinta stopped just as a jackal howled. What does that mean? The king asked. The jackal says that here, Tinta said, pointing to the ground, there is another pot of treasure. Again, the king told his guards to dig, and again he lifted out a pot of jewels. Even more impressed, the king trotted after Tinta, who had set off once more. It wasn't long before Tinta located a third pot and then a fourth. By this time, they had reached the temple. When they came to the spot where poor Kalavati stood, tears began to stream down her stone face. What's wrong? The king asked aghast. Tintas, whose eyes were also filling with tears, turned to the king and says, She weeps because you will die very soon. The king was horrified. Unless, Tinta paused. Unless you knock down the temple, you build the temple on an unlucky ground. But if you knock it down, you will live. Then the temple must be demolished at once, declared the king. By sunset, the temple was a pile of rubble, and out of the dust walked a lonely figure. Kalavati! Tinta was overjoyed. His plan had worked. When Indra heard, he roared with laughter. If such deceit had demanded punishment, such cleverness surely deserved a reward. So he summoned the couple to the heaven, where they lived like a god and goddess for the rest of their days. The end. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I really hope you enjoy. And if you did, smash that like button, and also please check out the YouTube channel. I'll be dropping a new video very soon. And yeah, stay tuned, and I love you all. Bye.